Welcome to the I Love Coaching podcast, the show where we help coaches, entrepreneurs, and leaders build businesses that create massive impact. I'm Adam Roach, alongside my incredible co-host,
Jess Weber, and we're here today to bring you the best strategies, mindset shifts, and real-life success stories to help you level up in your coaching journey.
Whether you're launching your coaching business, scaling to 6 or 7 figures, or just looking for inspiration to push through, this podcast is your go-to resource.
We're bringing you expert insights, real talk, and actionable items every single episode. So if you're ready to take your coaching game to the next level,
then let's dive on in. Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back to the I Love Coaching podcast. I am host one, and that is Adam Roach, and you are host two,
Jess Weber.
I'm going to create a fun little intro here that is consistent, Jess, but maybe it's fun just to kind of be fun each time. Jess, we are ending our series on questions that we ask.
Yes, we are. So we have already had 2 other episodes using our weekly questions that we use with our coaches inside our community to help them really audit or understand what's going well in their business and where can they grow or do they have opportunities in their business.
That's right.
So we did an episode on what were your wins, and we talked about identifying wins and using that to audit your 2024 year. We did an episode on the lessons that you've learned in the year. And then now that feeds into the episode we're going to do today. And that's our last question, which are, where are you going to make upgrades based on what you've learned?
Yes. Now, the upgrade portion is fascinating, right? Because some people will sit back and say, I'm good where I am. I don't need to make upgrades. Though we know, as we look at our entire world, as our entire life, there are many spaces we can make upgrades. Though as we're talking specifically about the coaching space, the upgrades, I think you should audit these upgrades probably on a daily basis, right? And that could be, are you recording yourself? And do you pay attention to your coaching calls? Are you looking at your lead sources as it relates to outbound or inbound leads, right? Where are you going to get better? And Jess, I think this is a big area of opportunity for everybody, whether coaching or not coaching.
Oh, 100%. I think it's a very valuable conversation. And actually, I find it interesting that you say audit daily. I think there is something to be said for that. But at the same time, I don't know that you want to make changes daily. So to me, it's auditing and upgrading. It's an awareness thing, but it doesn't mean that you have to implement change every single day, because otherwise you're never going to have a standard to measure yourself by.
That's
so I do want to make that point as we go into this conversation. Watching game tape, right? If you're into sports, reviewing things so that you can be intentional with your next move. Great. Do that daily. But if you are looking to make a massive change in your business, so in a coaching business, maybe you've strictly done one-on-one coaching and you want to move into a group setting, or you have some really good content from your group coaching that you think would make a great evergreen course, I would not say make that change rapidly and make that as an upgrade and then pivot the very next day. So there's places and times to upgrade quickly and some that are a little bit more strategic.
Yeah, for sure. And I think the word upgrade can be defined and described many different ways, right? I think that the word upgrade is, it's a word that I love the word, because you should always be upgrading, right? It is, but it reminds me back to and I'm just going to be silly here for a minute. It reminds me of my childhood days going through the McDonald's line and saying, do you want to upgrade to what was that big size that they had? What was it?
Supersize me.
Supersize. Yeah. Do you want to supersize it? Do you want to upgrade to supersize? Right. And when you look at your business, when you look at what you do daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, annually, you do have to upgrade. I'll give you an example here recently. I've always been in a lead generation space, a lead generator, and I love lead generation. I love My ex-wife used to say if we got on an elevator and we were going down one floor, she was like, don't talk to them. They don't need to be, you don't need to talk to them. Just leave them alone. They're going one floor down, right? And so I love lead generation. Though, here's an upgrade. And you and I discussed this, is are you doing more outbound sales calls or are you doing more inbound follow-up calls? Right. And that was a huge upgrade that I had to pay attention to because my true general nature is to do outbound. And I'm okay with the energy and the effort that it takes to do outbound. Though, if we upgrade and want to make the community better or make the businesses better or whatever it may be, you have to look at that and say, all right, if I'm good at outbound, though if my inbound was greater in its lead flow, if I spent the same amount of time that I did to outbound and I spent the same amount of time with the inbound coming, would we convert faster? And the answer is yes, right? So that was one here recently that I really had to pay attention to in an upgrading standpoint.
Well, and I think that's the perfect kind of caveat into where my brain was sitting with this is when you're looking at your business as a whole, you have the opportunity to look at basically the entire flow from lead generation to lead follow-up to conversion to actually coaching a client, right? Yeah. And so there's different areas in which you, one, need to audit, but two, maybe need to upgrade. So you might be a killer lead generation specialist like Adam was talking about, but then your lead follow-up or your conversions or coaching your clients might need to be skill sets that you develop. Or you might be a killer coach, but you really struggle with growing the business. And so I think one of the challenges that I would like to issue to the people listening to this podcast is take a look at all those different areas, figure out what were your wins, right? What were the things you learned about that space, but then figure out what skill you're missing in each and make that the place that you are upgrading next year. And I would honestly say you should not really focus on more than 3, maybe 4 skills in the year, thinking in terms of like quarters in the year, right? Because it takes, if you've read The One Thing, it's 66 days or 12-week year is a quarter, of time. It takes time to develop a skill and develop a habit. So you don't want to list out 20 skills to upgrade next year. So that's why that 3 to 4 range is ideal. But then sit there and figure out what books do you need to upgrade that skill? Like, what do you need to read? What podcasts or videos do you need to listen to or watch? What conferences do you need to go to? And who do you need to be in proximity to in order to develop that skill that you've outlined?
That's really, really good. That reminds me of the lesson that John taught us at the summit this past year, but I've been using it for a long time, and that was CAT, even though he changed it to ACT. And what that is I don't know why for years I thought CAT was the right thing to use when it should have been ACT. And it's an acronym though, right? And CAT says, what do I need to change? What do I need to apply? And what do I need to teach? And I used to use this as an upgrade when I was taking notes, if I was listening to a speaker, if I was listening, or if I was taking notes on any educational piece, or if I was with a mentor or whatever it was, and I was taking notes, I would go back and I'd put C's next to what I wanted to change, A next to what I wanted to apply, and T next to what I wanted to teach. And then from a priority standpoint, I'd put a 1, 2, or 3, and I'd combine all the 1s, all the 2s, all the 3s. And I never got to 2s or 3s. I always stayed with the 1s. So what were the 1 I wanted to change? What were the 1s I wanted to apply? And what were the 1s I wanted to teach? And then what I heard you say there was you need to pay attention to creating and developing a growth plan, right? A growth plan as you go through your year and you're looking where you need to make upgrades is that gap space between where you are and where you want to grow to. And the growth plan is just that. As Jess said, go to the right conference, read the right book, watch the right YouTube, listen to the right podcast that is specific and intentional for that gap to be closed so you can upgrade.
100%. And all of this will trickle into more conversations. I know we've got future podcasts planned on goal setting and vision casting and all of that. So this is a conversation that isn't ending with us.
Oh yeah.
But for the sake of this conversation, I think it's a really simple thing to say, look at your business, look at what you did well, look at your lessons, and then pick 3 to 4 skills that you need to grow in next year. And
Yep.
find the tools and resources, or as Adam likes to say, the who's that are going to help you go pro, to use that language we've been using. Because most often we are not playing as a pro in all of those spaces along that funnel from lead generation all the way to close and coaching. We might be a pro at one and an amateur in the other 3. And so those 3 are the ones that we really want to continue to develop to help us go pro across the coaching business as a whole.
Yeah, that's really, really good. I want to stay with the word upgrade, because if you don't upgrade, let's go to the opposite, right? So we just talked about how to upgrade. Let's talk about, Jess, what happens if you don't upgrade, right? What happens if you don't pay attention or are aware of where you need to upgrade?
I would say that the first thing that happens is you plateau or you stagnate, and then you honestly start to fail. Because by having what I would call a fixed mindset and not feeling like you need to upgrade, you are dead in the water. You're not continuing to make an effort to grow, and you're going to end up dying, floundering, killing your business, whatever the heck. Your clients are going to get bored with you because they're going to outgrow you because you're not growing and staying chapters ahead of them. You're not going to find different opportunities because people are going to see that you've stagnated. Overall, just by choosing not to grow, you're automatically, putting the cart before the horse and just setting yourself up for failure rather than success.
100%. I wanted to bring that up though, because I have met people that when I ask them about a growth plan, that we don't have a growth plan. Okay, so you do not have a growth plan because you didn't feel you needed one, or you didn't know how to write one, or you don't even know what one is. And you'd be surprised how many times I've heard people say, I don't think I need one. All right. And it's like, yeah, that's okay for right now, though you will lose eventually. If you're not learning about upgrading yourself, right? Because we believe, and I know this to be true, that the biggest investment you should make every year is in yourself. Right? Upgrading yourself every single year. Now, you and I, when we went through our business planning session, we had that as one of our components, though we use words like intentional, right? Purposeful, alignment. So we weren't just going to go upgrade ourselves because we are summit junkies, right? We're not going to just upgrade ourselves because we both love to just read and listen to podcasts over and over and over. We want to do it intentionally, right?
Yes. Well, and I think intentionality is a big key to this successful upgrading, because of the fact that I could, we've made jokes already on this podcast about how I read very quickly. I can read a book a day, a book every other day. I picked up one yesterday and I'm 70% of the way through it.
Show off. Stop showing off. You're just showing off.
I'm not. No, but my point is ironically, that book is about creating growth plans and things for the year. But my point is I could sit there and read a book every other day, which means I would read 180 books in a year roughly. And yet if I don't choose with intentionality what books I'm reading, then I'm just reading arbitrarily and I'm not actually moving towards growth and upgrading, right? I mean, I could read 180 business books. I could read 316 business books. And yet if I'm not being intentional about choosing the ones that are going to help me improve the skills that I've defined in my growth plan, then they're worth next to nothing to me. So for those listening, just hear, this is as simple as it sounds. You be intentional and just choose a few places to focus on, and you'll see a lot more growth than trying to sit there and say, well, I need to upgrade 47 things to be successful. Another piece of that book that I was reading, it's called Choose Your Enemies Wisely by Patrick Bet-David. And one of the whole premise of the book is, we've talked about looking at people who are chapters ahead of you or books or even series ahead of you and using them as kind of a beacon or a lighthouse to help you go towards that goal that you're setting for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole point of the enemy is the enemy could be yourself or somebody close to you that has said something negative about you that puts that fire in you to help you grow and be intentional. But it could also be that person that you want to be, that you want to, that's doing the thing in your space better than you, faster than you, or bigger than you.
Mm.
And so I think that that's a really relevant piece to this conversation as well, is if you are looking at somebody who's already in the coaching space and they might even be in the industry or like your very specific niche, maybe they're the enemy that you're choosing wisely to emulate, but because it'll fuel you. You're like, oh, well, they've done this much, or they've had this much impact, or they've achieved this thing. What skills do I need to develop? Who do I need to be around in order to get closer to them and close the gap?
So good. It's so stinking good. All of this conversation reminds me of a tool called a cash talk. Mm-hmm. And a cash talk is something that we used, and you and I actually used it. Yeah. And in the development of a relationship, though, in a development of a leadership space, and let me break it down for you. Cash talk it starts with a K, so it's KASH. So the first question is knowledge, right? And what we do with these cash talks, and what Jess and I did when Jess and I started over 2 years ago, is I would ask her every Friday 6 questions. The first one was, tell me about your knowledge. Right? What did you learn this week specific about the role that you are in, and what do you feel you still need to learn? The second question was attitude. What specifically are you finding that you really like about the role? Or what are you finding that you don't like about the role? And a few other questions. The next 2 I loved because it was skill. And the skill question was, what do you believe you still need to know or learn to be the best at this role, whatever the said role was? Mm-hmm. And then habits. Here's the habit question. The habit question was, who do you know that is succeeding at this role at the highest level that has habits that you still need to form? Right. And so you listed out some of the habits, you listed out the who's, and then you went and you got around those types of who's. And it's such a powerful upgrading tool that I think we should give that one away, Jess. Let's give the cash talk away to anybody who is listening right now. If you go to my Instagram, Adam R. Roach, and type in the word cash, and remember that starts with a K, KASH. I'll shoot you over the cash talk that Jess and I used, that many others have used. Actually, this is a Keller Williams tool. I don't know if it originated inside of Keller Williams, though that's where I learned about it. Though I'll give you the actual scripts that we used. I think it's a 2-part, but I'll give you the actual scripts that we used. The other part is what's called the red light, green light. And the idea behind that is after you do the cash talk with someone that you have hired, you then do the red, yellow, green light. And it's just red or yellow light. And the idea was based on the answers that the individual gave you. Do you want to red light them, stop, and ask yourself more questions, or do you want to green light them and keep them going? It's a very powerful tool.
Well, and I want to bring that back to the conversation about upgrading your own self and your own business, because I actually, once Adam and I stopped, I still would check in with those questions and grade myself weekly on that. Mm-hmm. Because one thing that Adam and I didn't do, but I used it in other places, is actually not just what knowledge, it was actually rate your knowledge on a scale of 1 to 10. And every week I would sit there and say, okay, well, how am I feeling about this? Because there would be weeks that I felt like I knew a lot, and so I would rate myself higher. But then there were weeks that I felt like I needed to acquire knowledge. We were implementing a new piece of technology. We were teaching a new model that I didn't feel comfortable with, or whatever. And so that cash talk and those questions, plus the red light, green light, you can actually use personally on the business just as much as you can use with somebody you've hired and are delegating things to.
So good.
But full circle, it's truly there to help you make conscious decisions to upgrade with intentionality.
That's right. Yeah, it's a system, right? Save yourself time, energy, and money. That's what a system is. And all of this is developing and building you, because ultimately you, if you're in the coaching space, this part we know to be true, you and your experiences are the product to your client, and that's why they're going to pay you. And if you're not paying attention to where you need to upgrade yourself, you will ultimately lose. But I know no one on this calls, or no one on this podcast who's listening, Jess, is a loser. So they understand how to upgrade, right?
100%.
Yes. Cool. Anything else we need to add here?
No, I really think that this conversation is as simple as it sounds. And honestly, if you're somebody who's struggling with that, feel free to reach out to Adam and ask for the cash talk, or feel free to reach out to me as well, Coach Jess Weber with 2 B's. Either one of us is more than happy to have a conversation around what it looks like to upgrade as a coach, because we've worked with hundreds of coaches and we know what people are habitually doing that doesn't set them up for success versus the ones that are. And very easily we're, often able to say, hey, have you looked at it this way? Have you considered this thing? Or have you eliminated this thing in order to be successful? So I'll encourage you to reach out to us, or if you're ready, join our community and get access to the entire group of coaches that'll happily do that for you.
Yes, they will. I want to gloat for a second, because upgrading is such a good word. Our community is so powerful. I love to share this with a coach that's coming in. When they say, what if I don't know how to do this? Or where can I get coached up on something? I'm like, boyfriend or girlfriend, you're coming into the best community on the planet, because all you have to do is go into the community and ask a question, and you'll have hundreds of coaches answering your question.
Yep.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, cool. Shameless plug there. Jess, great job. Way to upgrade our listeners, and I look forward to us doing our next podcast.
Yep, I can't wait, and have a great one.